Julie, do you still have Molly?
Okay, we are good to
Yes,
go.
we do.
Okay, we're rolling.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, everybody, happy to welcome you to our budget workshop number 3. At this time, Julie, if you could do, I'd like to call the meeting to order now at 7:06. Julie, if you could do roll call, please.
Sure. Barb Dayton,
Here.
Dave Conlon,
Here.
Tim Frazier,
Here.
Pat Brabant,
Here.
Amy Rivera, absent.
Thank you very much. Matt, if you could put up the flag, and then we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic
for which it
stands, one nation,
under God,
Indivisible, with liberty,
and justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Okay, great. So we're going to jump right into the work session for the budget. And Mike, you have a PowerPoint for us.
We have 2 PowerPoints. We're going to start with the first one, Barbara.
Yep.
Which is John Gibbons with us, or who's going to present it? Mike, can you present it?
Not the first one.
Hold on, Deb.
I'm not sure if I can present the second one either on here.
I thought that's why we send them to John Gibbons.
Yeah, where is he?
I don't know. Okay.
What is the first one?
The first one is special ed and our regular instruction, curriculum and instruction from Christine.
Okay, and what is the second one?
Second one
is
is
a summary of the whole budget and where it's leaving us.
Yeah, if I log off of this, I can log on my computer and then present. Does that work?
yes.
Okay, so hold on. I'll be right with you and I'll present. Hold on.
Okay, thanks, Carrie.
You're welcome.
Oh, there we go.
While we have a short break, I just want to let everybody know conference caller is up and running and the phone number is on the screen.
Thanks, Matt.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. And now, oh, I don't know. Hold on. Share screen. Just make sure. Okay, hold on. Chrome tab.
I just sent John a message. He might be able to log on.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Sorry, I'm not used to Zoom. Sorry, everyone.
None of us are.
I would've had this up. Just one moment.
Do you have to open up the screen first? Because I have one of the budget presentations open.
2021, I have ours.
Okay, that's the one we're going to start with. And then I have Mike's up on my screen.
Okay, so now let me see more. Nope, share screen.
So right now we're looking at the 2021 to see the expenditures from this past year, correct?
Okay, is that, do we see it all?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful.
Okay, so I
Yep,
thank
go
you,
ahead,
Carrie.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
just want to start with thanking the administrative staff and the clerical staff that have assisted us with collecting numbers. This is Christine's first budget, and she did go through it with a fine-tooth comb. and said, we haven't done that in years. And then, of course, made sure that everything that we are currently doing and what we want to do is included in the budget. So I want to recognize her for her gallant efforts first time out with the budget. The other thing is that this budget represents new space. So thanks to our capital project, we are looking at new space of a science lab, a new technology room with a computer lab attached to it, a new art room, new music room, new OT room, and of course our gym. We've met with our architects and some of the things are included in the capital project. If you think of fixed items, such as cabinetry, the electrical that hangs from the ceiling in a technology room, in the gym, the netting for volleyball, basketball nets, the scoreboard, those are all included in the capital project. But anything that are considered soft items, such as computers and additional equipment for the art room or for the technology room or the science lab, are not included. So this budget tonight represents some of those things, as well as more needs and looking at making sure our children have not only academics, but have their athletics. It includes intramurals. It includes all of our clubs prior to the pandemic. And then the diversity program, which was Miss Cleary's, now needs some advisors for that program because it fits very much with diversity, equity, and inclusivity. So we want to be sure that we do not miss that. The first couple of slides here are basically reminders to our community who might have missed some of our other presentations, our mission statement, our proposed goals, and what is meaningful to us, what we want to maintain, and of course, our enrollment, which we are staying with current numbers for our community, because if it keeps moving on us, it'll be a moving target, with the exception of kindergarten. We'll continue to update the board and the community on our kindergarten numbers as we have them. So now I'll turn it over. I think it's Carrie that's up first.
Yes, perfect. So I started off with, this is the special education part of our budget. So I looked back at our enrollment as of Beds Day, which is in October. So our 1920 enrollment was a total of 113. This year's enrollment as of Beds Day was 107, and anticipated for next year is 117. We do have a large kindergarten group coming in from alternatives and other preschools who receive services. So that is reflected in this enrollment as well as budget. I broke apart the special education budget as in the past, so thank you. It's nice to kind of see and go line by line, which we do for our school, to see what we are actually using and what we can take out, or if we need to replace based on student needs. So our equipment, we're proposing to keep it the same for next year. And that includes like hearing aids, if it is a more expensive device for a student. So that would fall under our equipment. Our contractual expenses or OTPT that are outside of what we have already in the building.
Carrie, can I ask a question? I hate to interrupt.
Sure, that's okay.
Yeah, before you go back to equipment, is there a need, or is there any request for audio trainers in with your students who are having issues with auditory processing?
Not right now. There is not. No.
Okay, I just wondered because I know
we haven't seen that uptick, Tim.
Okay, all right. I was just, because I know a lot of districts are looking at that as a way to provide support for students who have auditory processing issues. So I just didn't know whether you had any audio trainers that could be used in a classroom or not.
We do have some left over from past years. I know that, everything has become more digitalized. So that would probably, that would fall under equipment. But what in the past, what we really notice is as the kids get older, they don't want to use that. They'd rather sit up closer to the teacher than have
Well,
equipment
what I'm talking about is an
or
apparatus.
like the big speakers.
That is speakers in the back of the
Yeah.
classroom that give
Yeah.
them the audio from the
Right.
back and help them process it. Again, we can talk later, but I would say I would not be against adding, some money to this item in order to look at that as maybe one way we could support our special ed kids with audio processing.
Great. Thanks, Tim. I'll look at the older students too to see if there is a need, but right now nothing has come up, but we're also in annuals. So
I just know for the older kids in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that you'd be amazed how much they really appreciate that in a classroom and being able to hear what's going on, especially when the teacher's up in front of the class giving instruction. Not so much when small group, but definitely when there's that.
Yeah, the bigger class.
Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thanks, Tim. Okay, so hold on, let me go back to the presentation. Okay. So our contractual expenses are up. There is an increase of 37,000 for that. And that actually, part of it is a good thing. I know that's contradicting, but we receive Medicaid reimbursement. So we have to put it out that we pay it and then it comes back on the revenue side. So that went from, I think it was about 7,000 in the past and we're up to 11,500. So that was part of the increase. The other increase was like Ms. Winter said, our OT is going to have a new room. So that includes some new equipment for OT, PT, adaptive PE, as well as equipment for we have another special ed room coming in. So that is why, oh wait, sorry, I jumped to the next one, sorry. Contractual expenses for Medicaid, and then we had to increase PT and OT due to the needs of the kindergarten coming in. So that's what that 37,000 is.
Actually, I have a question about that line because you're showing us the actual expense for 1920, but what was budgeted for 2021? So did we stay within that budget for last year, or did we have to exceed that line item and
In 1920?
No, in 2021, you're showing
right now
what we budgeted for. Yes.
Do we have
budgeted for 86, but the previous year, the actual expense was 111. So this year, are we on track with that budget amount, or are we sort of
over?
Yes.
So part of that also line, Barbara, gets taken out by my grant. So we are on par for this year of that 86.
Okay.
Because we do have some of it that does get taken by the grant, and that was the change from 1920 to 2021. So I put some money into the grant to lessen that line in last year. Decrease that line this year.
Mike, you may be able to find that in the appropriation budget detail on what we've spent so far and what's still to be spent.
So
Yeah,
the increase there is new expenses. It's not like so the 2021 amount that we will have actually spent is really in keeping with 86. It's not higher than that, which would explain part of the 37 that we're budgeting extra for next year.
Correct.
Okay.
But I will double check, Barbara, and just if it isn't, I will clarify, but we should be in line with that 86.
I got a question on just on that one. And Bob already asked my first question about what we were spending our money on for 2021, and I guess you can look into that. Next one, when you go to contractual expenses, We increase of 37,000. What does that reflect, Bob? How does that number come in? What is that?
That was what I said, Pat, it was an increase in Medicaid expenses, which we get reimbursed back, but we have to budget for that. So they get a percent. So we're actually claiming more in Medicaid and they get 15%. So if we claim 100,000, they get $15,000 back.
Okay, I don't understand that.
So it pays for itself.
But we can't count it. We still have to do the outlay and then get reimbursed.
Correct.
So we have to.
Right, and then that's on the revenue side.
Right, okay.
That's an expense. And I did find it, Barbara, when this appropriation was run, I have a date of 3/21. We've expensed so far 50,000, 595,000 in the contractual expense for special ed.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that too.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we're on par with that.
yes.
And then the other increase would be PT and OT due to the kindergarten class coming in. Which,
We contract for services outside of our full-time occupational therapist.
yes, we have a part-time occupational therapist and then a part-time physical therapist that we contract out for. Are there any other questions about contractual expenses? Okay, so materials and supplies, that is increasing by almost 14,000, and that is due to the new OT PT room, as well as a special ed classroom and speech rooms. So that's more of just to make sure that they have what they need in their new space.
And they won't be sharing space anymore, right?
Correct. Well, the only people that will be sharing is OT PT. Will be sharing that larger room. But each speech therapist will have their own, except for when our bilingual speech therapist comes in, she'll share with one of the other speech therapists.
A quick comment about
Yes.
the new space that we're going to have next year, and filling out those rooms with things like so not just special ed, but the art and the tech and all. Is it something where we have to put into the 2021-2022 budget everything that needs to go into these new rooms? Can we come up with like maybe, a 2 or 3 year plan so that we're not taking a big hit for all of this extra new space that obviously we have quite a bit of items already on campus, and I'm thinking between that and maybe doing 1/3 of the ordering, we can get to where we need to go, at least out of the gate the first year, and over the course of a couple of years we could really bring those rooms up to where we want them to be.
Dave, we're going to talk a little bit about that when Mike does his forecasting on state aid. It looks like next year will be the year to do some of this because we're anticipating a one-time stimulus check from the state. Now, that's the governor's proposal. We don't know how the legislators are going to argue this. They're saying that a one-time hit is not appropriate and should be part of a state aid formula so that it's consistent year after year. We won't know anything. I don't know if we're going to see a budget for April 1st. I'm hopeful, but there's a lot of unknowns yet. But if there was a year to do this, it would be next year. But of course, not everyone's wish list is in here. Christine Clary said one of our teachers had a long list, and she's cut that back and made him prioritize his list. So although we may be asking for a lot this year, there's still a lot down the road for these rooms. But if we're going to do anything, I would recommend this year because next year is probably going to be a harder year for us. You're muted, Tim.
Dave had a great question, because I was thinking along those lines also. I think it might be nice if Mike could pull out of the budget all those things that are related to, having this extra space, so that we could see the total amount and it kind of percentage-wise of what that looks like. I think that would help us make better decisions about what to include and maybe not what to include, or what to maybe stagger over a couple of years or maybe not to. Right now, it's kind of in the budget everywhere. So maybe just a spreadsheet just related to the additional costs for materials and supplies for opening the classrooms that are going to be available to us next year.
We can do that.
That would be great. I would appreciate that. That would be a great thing to look at to make some of those decisions about what we can and cannot do.
Okay. Would you like me to continue?
Yes, Carrie.
Okay. So our food cart, we're keeping it the same budget, 4,500. We did have a donor in the past that helped us with that. So that might be something that we can look for next year. But right now we wanted to make sure that our food cart for next year is stocked, and that has snacks and food in case kids forget lunch or snack and need that throughout the day, since we don't have a cafeteria. Our textbooks are staying the same. The next three lines I'm going to talk to together, which is residential tuition, tuition to other districts, which includes East Hampton, and then our BOCES tuition. So overall, we would be down about 168,000 just on tuition for next year. And that has to do with some students graduating from BOCES, and some of our students who were either in another district or BOCES went to residential. So that money kind of just shifted around. But overall, we would be about down in tuition 168,000. Is there any questions about tuition?
Carrie, just to clarify, the tuition, other districts, that includes high school tuition for.
Correct. That's the bulk of it. That's our high school tuition. That's exactly what that is. So that's
high school tuition. This is just
special
ed high school.
Correct. Just special ed high school tuition, as well as we have a few students in Southampton, and that includes the 1211, 811 programs, as well as co-teaching. There's a hybrid cost that East Hampton charges us. So that is included in that 2.277932 million.
Carrie, you also have placeholders for a student who moves in that may be a high-cost student, correct?
Correct.
Because 1 or 2 students can be a large hit to a school district if you don't budget for it.
And that we do every year. We have some contingent spots for students if they move in, or if we shift where students go as well. So overall, my proposed budget is $3,225,311, which is a dollar difference of negative 116,304 from last year, or from this year, I should say.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Carrie.
You're welcome. And now Miss Cleary.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to start with, for our instructional proposed budget for 21-22. For curriculum and supervision, that amount stayed the same. The proposed budget is $7,000. That was what we budgeted for 2021. And we used every penny of it. So that is definitely something that can remain the same, but I don't forecast any kind of increase there. Supervision, which is equipment, conferences, materials, and supplies. I am proposing a $13,091. That is a $10,091 increase over 2021. And that is because, pardon me, I have all the devil's in the details, and I have all my little notes here on why this went up, so that you know. This guy went up because we have a new principal, obviously. You're going to have a new assistant principal. You also have a new clerical that replaced Michael Strecker, who serves both the principal and the assistant principal. So all those three positions require a little bit extra training through conferences and things like that. And also, we're all going to have new offices in the new building, and we're going to need some supplies and equipment for those three new staff members. So that was the bulk of why that went up. Research, planning, evaluation, contractual, and training. We added $1,000 to that budget for 21-22 to cover the costs of CPR and AED training for our coaches. Teaching.
Christine, can I ask
Yeah.
a question?
Sure.
I want to go back to supervision, equipment, conference, materials, and supplies. Again, that's why I would love to see a breakout of what you're talking about as far as materials and supplies.
Sure.
For those three offices. I think that would be helpful in looking at, that's a pretty substantial increase for 1 year. And as far as conferences are concerned, I'd like to know a little bit about what kind of training you're talking about as far as the administrative staff partaking in.
Okay, so for instance, I can answer that quickly. We invested quite a bit in our Teachers Forget Your Teach On, which has been a really successful instructional program. They also have Get Your Lead On for building administrators, so they can best support the work that the teachers did with Get Your Teach On. So that's one example. Another example would be literacy, maybe doing some literacy training with either Teachers College or, another program. So but I can itemize it for you so you have exact costs, Tim, if that would be helpful.
I would love to see that breakout of that, because I think that's important.
Sure.
Everybody gets caught up in COVID-19 and all the different things with instructional technology and so forth and so on, but it's that leadership and that really a focus from the administration and moving the school forward that is critical. And I would love to know more about what you're thinking as far as budget's concerned, but again, as far as participating in a team approach, what kind of information what kind of processes you're thinking about, because there's tons of them out there. And I'd just like to have a better kind of feel of where we're heading as far as that's concerned, especially because you're bringing in new leadership to our K-8 program. So,
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, Tim, this budget we put together, this kind of came all together just yesterday. So
right.
The next step is for us to gather all of that information and start identifying the one-time hits throughout the entire budget for you. So we'll have that for the next work session.
That would be perfect. That would be so helpful as we move through this. So I'll shut up now.
No, all good questions. It always helps to break things down. So the biggest nut here is the next category, teaching, which really encompasses most of what we do in the building, equipment, contractual, supplies, and textbooks. Now, this to the naked eye looks like it's a big increase. it's a $66,163 increase. However, that really is mostly due to these new classrooms and new labs. So for instance, we will have a new art room, as Ms. Winter said. We will have a new tech lab. We will have a new 8th grade science lab. And because of that, the 7th grade life science class will move into the 8th grade lab. And the 7th grade life science program has never had a lab before. So they're going to require kind of all new, some new sort of equipment, microscopes, things like that, that they really couldn't use in a regular classroom. We also
Chris, is there any discussion about our K through 6 science program and about the possibilities of supporting that in a classroom? Right now, it's not in a classroom, is it?
Well, this year it's not, but
Okay,
usually
will
it's
it
in
be- will
a
it be
science lab.
Will it be next year?
Next year, it will remain in the same science lab it's in now.
Okay, but has there been talk about helping out with, maybe equipping that in a better way for those kids in the elementary program?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
that's included in here. Some of the line items refer to specifically K through 6 as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions. Are those expenses detailed in the printed out budget that we received today?
Which expenses? K through 6 or 6 through 8?
All the things that
Well,
Tim
K
was just
through
asking
6 specifically, yeah.
about.
No, they're not itemized in this particular budget,
Okay.
other than amounts for, basically whether it's textbooks or whether it's equipment, things like that.
Right.
Yeah, like I saw 32,000 for Go Math. I mean, that's a huge chunk out of that budget. Maybe, again, I'm just interested, is it because we're renewing the contract with them, or?
Yeah,
because
that includes a renewal. That also includes the digital component to the program, because
Okay.
we use Go Math K through 8. So it really, it includes everything. Now, they
Okay.
are coming out with a new next generation aligned curriculum, but we kind of missed our subscription expired. So we need to purchase it for 1 year, and then we can look into possibly either extending that subscription as they align to next gen, or we can go with a different program. But that will get us through next year. And that includes everything: workbooks, digital component, textbooks, all that.
Is that usually the cost per year for Go Math, is 32,000?
It's an expensive program. Yes.
Yeah, I understand. But again, every year we're spending 32,000 for that program.
Give or take. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I really only know from 2019-20, and we
Okay.
can go back and find out, but we also use Go Math to support our Math AIS program as well.
Right.
So I can go back and make sure that is the exact total, but that was just a rollover from last year and what we spent.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And Barbara, in answer to your question about some of the detail of the lines,
Yeah.
in the book you got today,
Yeah.
under tab 2, you'll see 2 reports that have, one is the appropriation status with the detail notes built in. It's sometimes a little hard to read. And then behind it is a detail notes only, which lists by account code all of the different line items that make it up.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Mike, maybe before you start your presentation, you can walk the board through their binders.
Sure.
I do have a question about this teaching line, because it looks like there is a rather large drop from what was actually spent in 2019-20 to what was budgeted in 2020-21. That looks like a $450,000 drop there. So what happened between those 2 years?
Let's see. Hold on.
I think a big part of it has to do with the computer assisted instructional area. A lot of those codes for that kind of equipment wasn't specific to instruction, and they had to be reclassified, and they're built into a budget in the general administrative area.
So we're still having that expense, it's just
It's just in another location,
listed
yes.
differently. Okay.
Yeah, there were things that were taken out of my budget per se, the building budget, and given into Mike's, or like Mike just said, and they were moved around a little bit.
And a lot of it has to come, and there's a lot of it that's really coming through the BOCES codes. And BOCES provided us this year with a listing of all of the codes that we are billed for and all of the COSERs we're billed for, and what the appropriate account code we're supposed to use is. And that's where we found a lot of these items were in the wrong location, have to be moved up into the central administration area.
The other thing that we're looking to do because of the data privacy is purchase a lot of our software through BOCES because they have vetted the companies. We're not going with free programs because they're not properly vetted for privacy, and kind of like one-stop shopping. And we get the aid from BOCES as well.
Are there any other questions for that item? Can I continue?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. So, and also another part of that increase, that 66,000, is we expanded our ENL program a bit by another teacher and two teaching assistants. And they do require some new materials and also some replacement materials, as do our K-3 program with our foundations, which is our phonics-based program. Those kits they're not meant to last forever, and they're quite expensive. They're $1,500 per kit. So there are probably, we need to replace quite a few, and if not the whole kit, at least the durables, they call them, which are the student materials, like the magnetic letters that they use to build their words, and the whiteboards and all that stuff that comes with that foundations program. So, once in a while, it's about, we have to, replace items as well that go through a lot of wear and tear.
Right. I just would like to kind of put it out there that when you look at what money we put in the budget 2019 to 20 and compared to what you're proposing this year, even though it's an increase over last year, it doesn't come anywhere close to the kinds of things we were doing in the past. And I'm just a little worried about that. I might want to look at cutting some money other places in order to bring some money back into this area, because it is what everybody, it is what we need to continue to be a really highly efficient and effective school.
But Tim, this is where Mike was just saying that expenses have been reclassified, which is why they're not showing up here in the teaching line. They're showing up elsewhere.
I understand that, but I find it hard to believe it would be that much money. We're talking about a lot of money. So, yeah. I'd like to see it.
We can break it down for you, Tim. Like some of the software that Christine is talking about, we would code that under BOCES to get the aid on it, where before it might have been under this area.
Yeah, but in my recollection is that's not the case. But I'd rather look at it for the detail to see. But I don't recall back, going back to even 2018, 19, that was the case. So I'm just a little worried that amount has dropped tremendously over the last 2 years. So I'd like to see more about why it has.
Okay, we'll look at it, Tim.
Yeah.
Tim, and I think part of that might have been LLI kits, which are pretty expensive. I mean, not 200,000, as well as some reading support. And now the teachers have that foundations kits, LLI kits.
Right.
So, but we'll look into that.
Well, we also had support from Teachers College too, which is that budget is drastically reduced from the past too. So that may be part of it.
It's definitely worth looking at, Tim. It sticks out.
Okay, so actually in the line items, the tuition for East Hampton High School is actually included in that same budget code of 2110, but I broke it out for you because it's such a big nut. So if you look, our budgeted tuition in 2021 was, 6.674 million. Basically, our proposed, it does jump up there is an increase of 228,196. That reflects a 2% increase between 2021 and 2022. And it also includes some new students. We had 8 new students move into Spring School District at the high school level this year alone. We attribute it to COVID and people moving out here more from, the urban areas. We're not quite sure, but so we did budget for 292 students in grades 9 through 12. Those are general education students only, as per the tuition rate, plus the 2% increase. It comes out to be $6.9 million in tuition alone. Okay. Moving on to library. Library stayed the same. Those costs basically reflect all the books, the inventory, the ebooks, all the different applications that they use, and the media part, the technology and media part of the library program as well, K through 8. That stays the same, not a big change from 1920 or 2021. Computer assisted instruction, there was a bit of a jump here by about $25,950. Some of the increases there are subscription to Star Renaissance, which is our in-house assessment tool for both reading and math. It went from 14,000 to about 17,000 in 1 year. So they've increased their costs. We would like to build in an upgrade to our school website. So I increased that by about $1,500. We were in talks with Syntax, who provides our PR and our website development, and they said that they could upgrade our web page and give us make it a little more customizable and easier to use. So that upgrade is in there. Our technicians from LICN, who are amazing, there was an increase there, but as I think you heard me ask Deb earlier, we are still waiting on an actual price from the owners of LICN to see if, in fact, it will increase from 185,000 to 200,000. We built that in to anticipate more services for the larger building and, the new part of the building, and some salary and some services that they would provide.
Is that part of BOCES? Is that part of BOCES by any
Yes.
chance? Okay.
Yes, it is.
So we get money back on that. Okay.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, their services through one of the BOCES coasters.
Okay.
The 25,000 also reflects an increase. We added in Second Step, which is our social emotional learning program, K through 8. They came out with a digital component to it, which is really great considering we were on remote learning for a while, and we'd like to continue to use that. It's been really effective with our kids. So that costs around $10,000 in order to buy that component of the program. So that's computer assisted instruction. Any questions on that?
And we'll itemize it for the board,
Sure.
everything that
And-
Kristen spoke about.
Co-curricular activities. We had some oldies but goodies in there that we took out, and then we also had things that have become sort of staples in our co-curricular programs that really were never funded before. So as Deb mentioned, the Diversity Ambassador Program, which has grown pretty substantially over the last 3 years, that we had never budgeted for that before. So now that I probably won't have time to lead that program, we will need coordinators. We do have a couple teachers that are interested in doing that. So the increase is reflected in that, as well as World's Fair, a budget for World's Fair. Of course, we would like to continue that tradition. And that's really more supplies and materials, to accommodate the, 800 people that show up for that.
Do you know if you spent all that $52,000 this year when we would,
No.
Yeah, that's what I was
No.
thinking. Okay.
No,
Definitely not.
Okay. How much did you not spend?
It would be on the appropriation,
Yeah.
tab
Okay.
2. We can look that up for you.
I don't have to know it right now, but I just think that needs to be looked at a little closer too.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't spent the whole lot on any of the co-curricular or
Right, I would think,
interscholastic up
how
until this
could you?
point.
Wow, how could you?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at 1920, that's when the pandemic hit. We only
Right.
spent about 13,000 on co-curricular supplies and
Right.
materials. So we budgeted for almost 53,000. We haven't spent nearly any of it at this
Right.
point.
Got it.
Okay, and we would really like to bring back Springs Idol. That was the kids year after year since we have not had it, have asked for it back again. And we're hoping to actually maybe even do a remote version of it this year. But we would like to budget for that going forward if possible. I think there were 2 co-coordinators for that as well. Interscholastic Activities, that was actually a decrease of $5,273. I worked with our athletic director, Whitney Riedlinger, on this. We have a little bit of a savings there because we purchased uniforms last year that do not require to be purchased again. And they also, the PE department and the coaches purchased some replacement equipment that they do not need to replace again next year. So that's why there's a decrease there. All the other.
Just another question there along the same lines as the one before. Was there any money left over in this budget item for this year because of the fact that we weren't in school for so long?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think we're going to spend it though, because they're going to try to jam all of the seasons in the next, between now and June.
Okay.
It just started fall sports just this week. So I think
Okay.
I don't know if they're going to get them all in, Mike. That's a lot.
It is a lot. I know. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're doing 6-week seasons for each of those seasons.
And just to give you a little bit of a snapshot, the membership fees alone are about, let's see, for both the high school to participate in the high school sports for our 7th and 8th graders, and also Section 1 dues and fees is about $40,000. And that's just in fees and dues to
Is that
participate.
for the local Section 11, Christine?
Sorry?
Is that just for Section 11 for Suffolk County?
Yeah. No,
See,
New York State
That's
and
New York State as well, yes.
Yeah.
New York
York
State
State
Public
as
High
well.
School Athletic Association.
Yeah, but since our kids are tied to East Hampton High School, I don't know, I don't know enough about it to talk about it intellectually, but it seems like there should be some kind of shared service with those membership fees, given the fact that our kids who do participate, of course, participate in their JV sports, not necessarily in 8th grade or 7th grade sports. But I don't know if there's a way to look at that where we could maybe do some shared costs with that. That's a lot of money.
We do have a shared cost contract with East Hampton for each individual sport. And they bill us based on the coaches, the number of kids, so on and so forth, which also includes some of these fees that Christine was just talking about. But most of the fees that we get billed for are just strictly for our 7th and 8th grade teams.
Okay, all right, that clarifies that. Thank you.
Yep.
So that is it. So I am proposing a budget of $7,795,187 for the 2021-2022 school year.
You're asking a lot, Chris.
I know. I know.
Thank you very much.
But we put it to good use. We put it to very good use.
Remember how much of that is to send children to the high school.
Well,
Right.
60% of that is high school tuition.
Right.
Over 65% of that is high school tuition.
Yeah.
The rest of it is left to run an entire K through 8 school.
Well, but that's always been the case. So we've always,
Yes, you're right.
So.
Carrie, can you put up the next PowerPoint?
John is ready with the next PowerPoint. So John
Oh, that's
Gibbon,
great.
I will stop sharing and it is all you.
Thank you, Carrie.
You are welcome.
And this PowerPoint follows the same format we did a year ago for budget workshop number 3. So we start out with a little statement on slide 2. John? You there, John? Yep.
There you go.
Again, last year we opened up with a little statement about the COVID-19 crisis, and I've updated that. Basically, since March 13, 2020, we entered into unprecedented times, which are anticipated to continue through the rest of this school year and well into next school year. The need to continue all of our cleaning and disinfecting protocols is included in the current budget proposal, along with the PPE supplies, the masks, the gloves, and that kind of stuff. Next slide, John, please.
So just to stop you right there, I mean, so we plan on keeping the exact same cleaning protocol for 2022,
Yes.
2021, 2022
Disinfecting
budget?
and just routine cleaning, yeah. We've cut the COVID money down to about 125,000 for next year. Remember, we started out last year with a $250,000 line item. But speaking with Dan and I met and talked about this. We think 125,000 would cover just strictly the disinfectants and cleaning supplies necessary to keep those protocols up. All right. First is the expense budget, comparing our budget last year to what we're proposing for this year. Our biggest nut is our salaries and wages, and it's a $738,000 increase in that category. Now, this past year, because of all of the restrictions and doing the remote learning, the hybrid, we found that we needed additional staff, additional TAs, additional teachers, in order to cover everything that we needed to cover. And because we're still anticipating a lot of that to continue into next year, we felt that that level of staffing is still going to need to be kept. And so that 738 is just not only the additional heads that we need, but it also includes all of the contractual salary increases from the different collective bargaining agreements.
Mike, you do have 2 teachers out of the budget though, correct? 2 retirees?
Yes, we took the 2 Hallmans are out. They're not included and they're not being replaced. All right, as far as equipment goes, we've got a $36,000 increase. That's all throughout the whole district. You've heard some of the equipment increases from Christine, but with some of the new spaces, that we've got a few areas where we've gotten renovation and new building that didn't include all of the furniture necessary for those new spaces and renovated spaces. So we've increased a little bit in there to help cover the cost, taking advantage of the one-time pandemic stimulus relief, which we will itemize for you at the next workshop. Tuition for East Hampton High School and special ed combined, you see there's a $229,000 increase in that line, and 2% of that increase, or 2%, I should say, the increase from last year on East Hampton was 2%. So that accounted for about 133,000 of that 229,000. Plus the additional students that we have going to East Hampton. We budgeted, I think it was 288 with a couple of seats as a cushion last year. And we exceeded that this year with a number of students that moved into the district that went to the high school. We have to absorb the cost. So we're trying to account for that in this budget as well.
This would also include the residential placement that was in what
Correct.
Terry was showing us, right?
Correct. And it's all inclusive. It's the kids going to Southampton, to Eastern Suffolk BOCES, as well as the residential. I think there's 2 residentials we've got right now. All right, textbooks, it's a modest increase of 14,000, going from 198,000 to 212,000. And again, we get a special aid, called a categorical aid item there, that the governor is trying to pull out of the state aid and do it as a services aid in a grand total thing. But the legislative group are looking to keep the categorical aid items in the state aid. So we'll see how that pans out by this next go round when we see the legislative budget. BOCES services. BOCES had increases in all of their services between 2% and about 4%. So a lot of these are services for the most part that we had from last year that we've recost out for this year to come up with a $105,000 increase from last year. And again, we get aid on most of those services, and so we get some of that back. Debt service payments, we've been talking about this quite a bit. It's a big increase, yes, $392,000, and the bulk of that is, actually most of it is because of the interest payment on the new capital project bond. The actual interest is about $492,000, but we also have a couple of the leases that are now paid up, and we don't have those going forward. So we had about a $492,000 increase, and we cut down about almost $100,000 just on two leases that we finally paid off entirely. Employee benefits, of course, it's going to be an increase. If you've got an increase in wages and salaries, the benefits kind of go hand in hand. So it's a $466,000 increase on the employee benefit lines, which includes TRS contributions by Springs School District, ERS contributions, the health insurance, which includes the dental insurance, the payments to our the Medicare reimbursements to our retirees. It includes workers' comp and unemployment insurance, among all of the other things. And those are the large items. The next three categories are supplies and services, basically supplies and what we call contractual. But as we've done in the past, we've split it up between general school, facilities, and transportation. And again, general school supplies are going up by about $88,000. Again, a lot of extra supplies for some of the new students, new classroom space, things like that. The facilities has actually gone down by $5,000. We found that there were a few items that we no longer need. So for instance, we had a big nut in there for septic pumping. We're not going to need that with this new system. So we cut that back considerably. We had a few increases, so the net was a $5,000 decrease. Transportation, same thing. We've got a few additional, most of transportation's increase is really due to the increase in gasoline prices, fuel prices.
Mike, go back to facilities for a minute. Your change is in the negative, but will you please explain the increased cost for heating the new building and snow removal?
Yeah, we figured we typically budget somewhere around $40,000 for heating fuel, and we increased that to $70,000 because we know we've been seeing lately that we've consuming a lot more. We're getting the fuel truck in there once during the winter, once every week and a half or so. So we know that we're consuming more fuel because we've had the windows open for fresh air and exchange of fresh air. But the other thing that's hitting us is the increase in the price per gallon of all of the gasoline and fuel oil and things like that. We also have allotted about a $25,000 increase just in snow removal, because with the new parking lots and the like, it's going to take the contractor that much longer to do all the plowing, salting, and everything else for all of the new roadways and parking areas that we've now created through this capital project. So we thought it was prudent to just increase that particular item by about $25,000. And like I said, we've got septic. We were budgeting a lot for septic. It was probably about $55,000 a year just for septic pumping, and we're not going to see near that number going forward. And interfund transfers, which are typical for the special aid fund, the school lunch fund, and for any capital type of stuff, is the same. We haven't changed it, so there's no increase there. So what you're looking at right now is our proposed budget is $32,124,874, which is a $2,075,444 change from last year's budget. All right, next slide, John. This is the calculation of the tax cap. So last year we had a tax cap of $27,151,963, which was a 2.12% increase. We actually levied $27,033,579. So our tax cap this year is $28,091,312. A tax levy change of $1,057,733, or a 3.91% tax levy increase from the prior year. I have question marks at the actual levy because that's yet to be determined. So that's something I think we can talk about with for the board to decide, depending on how things go. And again, I think that can be a conversation for workshop number 4. You can, we may be in a situation, we may decide we have to pierce the cap. We may have to reduce the levy, whatever you guys want to do. But if we reduce the levy, we've got to increase the appropriated fund balance that we use to help offset that. So it's a seesaw. It's a little bit of a juggling act. Next slide, please. Here's our state aid figure. And as you can see in column 1, that's the executive proposal for this year. Basic state aid and foundation aid was $1.5 million. He had universal pre-K as an aid category of $62,100. We didn't have any figure in there for BOCES aid, but it runs about $200,000 each year. But that's, that's a separate item. The high cost excess cost aid is $168,660. Private excess cost aid is $23,595, and building aid is estimated at $18,042, giving us a total of $1,784,700, compared to last year's executive budget, which was $1,740,084, just a $44,616 increase over last year in those particular categories. Now you go down the next level below, you see the COVID-19 supplemental stimulus of $743,034. The governor has put that in as though it's a state aid item. So it's going to be interesting to see how the legislature decides they want that handled going forward. I back out the universal pre-K number because that is a number, that is a amount of money that actually belongs to the special aid fund, not the general fund. So that gives me a total budgeted state aid number of $2,465,634, which is a 46.94% increase over last year's executive budget of $1,677,984, or an increase of $787,650. Next slide, please. Our other revenues include, I found out this year that the pilot, the payment of lieu of taxes for some of the various properties that have like the utility lines, things like that, instead of $105,000 we budgeted last year, it's actually going to be, we received $127,000 this year, and it's going to be roughly the same next year. I left interest alone at about $15,000. Our tuition revenue for students that attend Springs from other schools, I'm only basing it on one student at $98,649. That's our non-resident tuition amount from the state. Then our miscellaneous items for donations, insurance recoveries, and such stays the same at $225,000. So our other revenues are $465,735 for 2021 to 22. And this current year, they were budgeted at $442,298, and the biggest increases has to do with that pilot going up. Down below is our fund balance. These are the three areas where we appropriate to help balance our budget. So in order to balance the budget using a tax levy at the tax cap, we need $1,505,000 in total revenue and fund balance. And the fund balance items for this year, the undesignated appropriated of $840,093, the ERS reserve and the repair reserve of $100,000 each, which, as you can see, is lower by about $400,000 from the appropriated we had from last year. So that ends up bringing us down. Yep, and here's the summary. The proposed expense budget is $32,124,874. Last year's expense budget was $30,049,430 for an increase of $2,075,444. Percent increase over 2021 is 6.91% versus a tax levy increase of 3.91%. So that leaves us with a number of options here, or, you know, if you give us some guidance, should we be cutting the budget? Should we be using more in the appropriations? And what we have available in appropriations is going to be largely a function of how much surplus from this year can we carry over to next year to use as an appropriation in the new budget year. So that's where we're at right now. And I can go through the book a little bit with you too, that you got today. It's got a number of tabs in it. So you've got, in the beginning of the book, you've got your workshop number 1 presentation, your workshop number 2 presentation. These are the PowerPoints from those presentations. Then you've got tonight's presentations, workshop 3. You've got a spacer for workshop 4, and then you've got tabs 1 through 5, I think it is. And each one of those tabs has another section of the budget that we've been talking about. So for instance, in tab number 1, you'll see there's blue dividers. First thing is a financial fact sheet. It just gives you some of the data about our bank accounts, about our investment accounts, just informational for the board. Then it's got a section on the general liability insurance with the estimated premium. And behind that one page, it breaks down all of the different coverages our current insurance has in every category. Then it summarizes in the back about the fringe benefits. I just talked about all of the different. You've got the night shift health insurance. You've got the dental insurance. It shows the employees' contributions to reduce that number down. It's got the pension, disability, and life insurance benefits as well. Then you've got your what I call the statutory benefits, which are the employer's share of Social Security, the employer's cost of workers' compensation, and the employer's cost for unemployment insurance. It's really, all of this is really to give you a little information. And the last page in that fact sheet is a summary of the top 16 contracts, service contracts we have, and what the value of each of them is. We had a contract with Della Polo for the snow plowing. As I said, it was only $5,000, but already this year, they billed us over $30,000 for the snow and the ice that they put down on the roadways. The next blue section is called Advocacy News. This was from the Council of School Superintendents, and it gives a breakdown of the State Assembly, the One House budget plans, gives you some of the highlights that they've been talking about. I know another new one just came out today, and I'll get that out there for everybody. But in this one, it also talks about the state's retirement incentive. And again, there's so many questions and not enough answers to be able to tell you whether it's a good deal for us or not. Deb and I have talked about it. And honestly, from the samples that we've seen, it's going to be extremely expensive for any school to opt into that those incentives. But we have to wait and see. The way that law is set up is TRS and ERS are going to do the calculations, and they're going to send them to us, and they're going to be unique and individualized to spring school based on the employees that they have on their rolls. The next blue section actually has 3 items in it: the budget summary, the fund balance estimate, and the tax cap calculation. So the budget summary is basically a lot of what you just saw in this presentation. It's almost item for item what was in this presentation. The fund balance estimate, that's where we are right now. And basically, I'm looking at an unassigned fund balance over the 4% limit of $321,000 to carry over for next year. And again, if you want to reduce the levy, if this all stays the same, we will have to dip into that 4% limit of undesignated fund balance, which is sitting at $1.2 million. So that's something to consider. Then I've got the actual detailed calculation of the tax cap for 21-22. The next blue section is
Mike,
yes.
If I'm reading that correctly, at the bottom of the tax levy cap calculations page, the budget that you are proposing is below the maximum allowable tax levy. Is that correct?
No.
Wait,
we're using that full 28 million. That we're using that full 28 million.
Right. You're saying that's the maximum allowable amount, yes?
Maximum allowable. So we're presenting tonight this budget taking us right to the maximum tax amount, the tax right at the tax cap.
Okay. Because right below it says that was last year.
That was last year's. That's there so that I can calculate a little bit easier what the increase is of 3.91%.
Okay.
All right, the next blue section in tab 1 is the appropriations budget for 21-22, which basically lays it out code by code in account code order. It gives you the 2021 proposed budget. It gives you the 2021 budget, gives you the dollar change and the percent change. Then it shows you the actual expenditures of 2021 to date. Then it gives you 2019-20's budget and the actual expenditures for 19-20 as well. And again, I know last year Tim had asked for something like that, and I believe we've got it here in the format that Tim was asking for last year. Then you go to tab 2, and tab 2 has the same appropriations.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, same appropriations budget. The only difference is when you look, for instance, on the first page, you've got account code A1010-4000, and it shows 13,200, and below it, it's got individual line items that make up that 13,200. So you'll see those scattered throughout here where we have a lot of detail. You'll see that detail. Some of the things may be summarized, like the wages and salaries. We don't have that detailed yet because there's, still a lot of discussion as to where staff are going to land up. But I gave you the total dollars. Same thing with BOCES. We've tried to put in as much detail in BOCES, but in some cases, we had to summarize it a little bit. In that same section, behind this is another report called the Detail Notes, and that is only all of the detail in each of the individual account codes. And again, it's sorted in account code order. So it's a little bit clearer, I think, a little bit simpler to see how the detail that made up this budget fell into play here. Tab 3 starts breaking each of it's the budget status report again in summary, no detail in there, but it's compartmentalizing a little bit more. Wages, salaries, and benefits are in this one section. Then there's a section on the tuition, a section for debt service, and the totals off of this should tie right into the budget summary that we presented tonight. That's in the front part of the book. Then you've got your interfund balance transfers, your textbooks and library materials expenditures, and all of textbooks and library materials are both those categorical aid items that we get special aid on that, but we have to spend the money to get the aid. And you got a section for BOCES. And then there's another section for the COVID cleaning, disinfecting, and PPE. for equipment and furniture, for contractual, and then for supplies and materials. And those are all the tabs on that. Tab 4, these are special worksheets that I've created for like the staffing. You'll be able to see all of the different staffing, who's going where, who's teaching K, first, second, third grade, along with the employee benefits. So that gives you a lot of detail on what went into calculating that, and it upgrades everybody, moving people either up a step or over whatever, based on their contracts. There's also a section in here that it's titled Tuition Worksheets, which kind of calculates out, shows you how the calculations we used came up to what we put in the budget. And the last worksheet in there is the debt service schedules. You'll see how all the debt service schedules lay out, and it actually brings it out from now to 2026-27 for you. So you can see how the plan going forward is going to work, especially with the various bus purchasing and how that's going to flow. We've left tab 5 as for anything else that will come along, and we've got a tab for other that has nothing in it as well. So that's how that book is laid out. You want to study it and get back with any questions, I'd be happy to dig the details for you. Because like Christine said, the devil is in the details.
Thanks, Mike. I guess I know what I'm doing this weekend.
I mean, ideally, I would have liked to have gotten this in your hands Friday, so you'd have had a chance to look at it beforehand, but it just didn't work out. You know, we were just up against the gun.
Couldn't you have made it a little thicker? I'd like something a little bit more substantial. Than
yeah,
this.
yeah. I'm a firm believer in it passing the weight test. It's got to pass that weight test.
No, this is really very, very thorough. So thank you very much, Mike.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. This is what Mike, I know everybody has a lot of work put in the budget process. So thank you guys for doing that. That's going to be helpful as we go through it.
Well, I felt bad for Christine. She stayed up until 12:30 Saturday or into Sunday morning finishing her piece. And then I got up at 4:30 in the morning and started working on it Sunday morning. So yeah, everybody had their share of contributions here. And I know Kerry spent a lot of time trying to help Christine out, which was wonderful.
So,
No,
the first budget's always the best one, Christine.
Yeah. Good learning process.
So our next budget work session is on April 12th, it looks like, right?
April
5th.
Yeah.
April 5th is Easter Monday?
Yeah.
All right, it's not listed on the calendar that I have there. It's showing it's on the 12th.
Is Julie still here? Maybe she can help us out with that. Because one of the things I'm going to do on that one is I'm going to go through like what Christine and Kerry did tonight with the technology and the buildings and grounds budget.
Right.
Yeah, I'm here. I have, actually, I have April 5th as
I'm
the
okay
next
if you want
work
to do April
session.
12th, but yeah.
The 12th is fine. I can do the 12th.
I'm just looking at the calendar that everything else is listed on, Julie, and for me on my, calendar app and where everything pops up. So to me, it's not showing until the 12th. But I mean, whatever date is, I just want to be prepared with getting a chance to look over this. And then as Tim had asked for, if we could soon get that breakout of expenses related to the new building, and then if there are expenses related to other new staffing, as Christine was mentioning, just as we're combing through this, it would be good to know which those things are, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. I had the 12th as a regular board meeting. Could we do both? It shouldn't be that long.
I have
just want to say
I have the 26th as a regular board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we're all up.
I'd just like to say that the more focused in a meeting like this, just on the budget, it's better because we don't get so blurry-eyed as we, about 2 hours is all I can take, basically.
So, Tim, you have a very good idea. If the board is amenable, if we could keep the 5th as a regular workshop, because we have graduation to discuss, end of the year celebrations to discuss, and we really need the board's direction on graduation because there are some expenses attached to that. So the sooner we do that conversation, the quicker we can secure certain things that we might need for graduation, and then push the budget meeting workshop out to the 12th.
Yeah.
Would that work for everybody?
And then the
Well,
regular
I
board
just-
meeting on the 26th can cover the board's adoption of the budget, which is in time for when I have to file everything with the state.
Sounds good.
So I'm also showing that we have an extra fourth session, budget session scheduled for Wednesday, the 14th, if necessary, and that there's one scheduled for Monday, the 12th, but is that not enough time?
No, we're not going to do the 14th. We'll just do the 12th.
Okay,
We're not going to do that one on the Wednesday. We'll just do the Monday, the 12th as budget workshop number 4.
Thanks, Mike.
So
All right, so
Mike,
I'll make the changes to the calendar and send everybody an updated calendar.
so if
okay, great. So
we're getting
doing a regular
feedback-
Work session on the 5th then, is that what I understand?
Yes.
Okay, and then the number 4 budget session on the 12th. I suppose if we were to need another one, we would have time to schedule one in after that before the
We could
meeting.
squeeze between then and the 26th, yes, if we have to.
Okay,
yeah, because you're going to
Yeah.
get a lot of feedback on the 12th.
Yeah, because
right?
in the past, we've squeezed them in on a Wednesday when we've had to.
yeah, okay.
So Mike's not going to get feedback from us until the 12th.
Mike can get you the detail, the itemized detail that you want, and then I would suggest you just, either
Reach out to
email
him.
questions,
Yeah.
Go to him direct like we have in the past.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. And when each one of you sends me questions, I'll respond and send the same questions out to everybody. So everybody sees the question and everybody gets the same answers.
and
Um,
hopefully we'll have some state aid numbers by then.
I hope.
Deb, unless you only have really a couple items that we need to be going over on the 5th in a work session, in which case we could have a very brief work session and then focus on this a bit.
Yes, we could do that too, Barbara. The agenda is already up, I believe. Let me take a look for some of those topics. The graduation was the one that was the most important to us. Let me go to board docs. Let me open another agenda. Because Julie's been good about putting things in for me.
Yeah, for the discussion items for the
Yeah,
5th,
go
I
ahead,
have
Julie.
the end of year celebration, DARE, kindergarten moving up, extracurricular activities, special class, setting proposal, and the UPK RFP.
Yep.
So that's what I have for discussion items for the 5th.
Okay.
I mean, we can move some stuff around to be old or new business for one of the regular agendas, depending on what's priority at the time.
Yeah, okay. But there's certainly opportunity to ask any questions about the budget at that workshop on the 5th.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any more questions at this point regarding the budget items? In that case, I would just, Matt, if you want to, well, I guess members of the community, I'm sure the phone number's up. We usually do have public commentary available at our budget work sessions. So if anybody is watching, there's a number on the screen that you can call in with any questions that you might have about this.
And we do have one caller holding.
All right, bring them on.
Good evening, school
And
board. This
phone
is David
number
Booth. I wanted to make
is-
a couple of.
I'm sorry. I just unmuted the last 4 digits of 8764. You're on.
Thank you. Good evening, school board. This is David Buddha. It's obviously a lot to digest all at once, and I certainly can't digest it any faster than you can. So I have a lot of questions, and I will be studying the future documents and deliberations. But I have a couple of comments and questions. Looking at the workshop presentations so far that have been put together, what I don't see, which in years past there were, with respect to enrollment, I do not see any projection for next year's enrollment. I only see current enrollment and prior year enrollment. I don't see projection and class size based on your projection. With respect to fund balance history, I don't see any current fund balance estimates and what you are anticipating based on your expenditures this year to have at the end of the year, which of course will help determine how much of that unallocated and unrestricted fund balance you can utilize to reduce next year's tax levy. I don't see online the prior year's audited financials. I know that a year before that I had asked for them and they were posted, but the last time I looked, your website does not have your audited finances for last year's school year. I wanted to make a couple of observations based on the numbers that are in tonight's presentation. You're looking at a 6.5% increase in wages and salaries. You're looking at an 8.8% increase in employee benefits. You're looking at an overall 6.9% expense increase. And if you subtract out the debt service increase, still leaves you with a 5.6% increase for expenses. And then I have to comment on something that's always astounded me when it comes to public employee budgets and expenses. It's just amazing and I would have to see the detail that the school board members see to understand how your benefits are 47% of your wages and salaries. That is just such an astronomical number that defies imagination and is certainly not what happens in the private sphere. 47% of your wages and salaries are then paid out in benefits for future benefits and medical and dental and every other kind of benefit that you pay. The one thing I heard tonight mentioned that might be something that could be an area to be cut, and I've never understood how with your generous employee benefits packages and that you are obviously paying for 47%. Why is it that you still are paying Medicare reimbursements or contributions for retirees? How did that come about? That certainly is not a matter of contract. That's something that's perhaps you should consider eliminating. I don't know how big a number it is, but I just don't understand how retired teachers who are on Medicare and get a contribution from the school to pay for their supplemental Medicare. I wish I understood those numbers. So those are my comments, and I realize it's a work in progress. There are a lot of moving parts. You don't have a final number, but right now the number that you're contemplating is, unfortunately, seems to reflect a predisposition to utilize the very maximum allowable amount of tax levy without exceeding the maximum allowed under the restrictions. And that's, frankly, the wrong-headed attitude to start with. You should be looking at what is the least that you need to spend to get the job done. Thank you.
David, thank you very much for calling and checking in. I'm sure, Deb, I see you making some notes, and Mike probably about some of the things, his question about having something posted on the website that was there before. And if those are ready, maybe we can get those up there. And yes, we're certainly taking a look at everything. We want to come up with the best numbers for this year, but being mindful of we have to be looking at what our numbers are next year, both in terms of enrollment, in terms of extra expenses, so we don't shoot ourselves in the foot by reducing too much this year and having an issue with making that next year. So we're always thinking about 2 years at once when we're doing this, and that's not some kind of game or any reason to be doing that. It's just really a practical planning for that. So it's working on multiple years at one time is what we're trying to do here. Matt, has anyone else called in?
Do you want anybody to respond
not
to what Mr. Buddha was asking, some of the questions? Because I might be able to answer a couple of them.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks, Mike.
The audited financial statements are on the website for June 30th, fiscal year end, June 30th, 2020. It's under the Board of Ed tab. So you'd have to look in there and find it, and it's in there. The enrollment.
Thank you.
There was an enrollment report on tonight's PowerPoint that Christine and Kerry presented. It was about the 4th page in, I think. 6th page in. And it shows in the same format we've done. And we've shown the same report on our PowerPoints on the prior budget hearings to show pre-K right down to grade 8 and the high school. It shows the actual enrollments, the number of sections, 1920, which was last year, versus what they are today. The only thing we didn't add in there was a forecast for next year. But the enrollment numbers, they're in a state of flux. The fund balance estimates. All right, I didn't present it tonight in specific, but if you'd like, I can get you a copy of that. Our health insurance, it's a lot of different pieces. We automatically have roughly a 10% contribution for retirement, for the retirement systems, both TRS and DRS. We also have a 7.65% contribution for the employer's share of FICA and the Medi-FICA. Health insurance and dental insurance and some of the other insurances, that always comes in roughly around 29-30% of the total budget. Those 3 items alone give you 47.6%. As far as your question about the Medicare reimbursement for the retired teachers, every school district has this. This has been going on since the 1960s, 1970s, that the retired teachers from every school district do get a contribution, get paid as part of the contract we have with the New York State health insurance plan. It's required by that plan in order to keep the plan active and keep the costs and the benefits in line with what the teachers, what everybody's been accustomed to for the last 40 or 50 years. I hope those answer your questions.
Yes, and I will look at the curriculum presentation that was discussed tonight, but it was not online before the meeting. Only your presentation was available, so I will look at that and print it out. Just for your information, looking at the screen, it's very hard to, it's a little fuzzy and small, a little hard to read a presentation. It's so much easier to have it in advance and to be able to print it out.
Yep.
And I will look for those audited financials. I found the prior year. I didn't find the most recent years, but maybe I didn't look in the right place. I'll find it. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Mike, thank you very much for your explanations there, your answers. Matt, is anyone else calling in?
0 additional callers. Thank you, Barbara.
Okay. Does anyone else on the board have any more questions at this point for anyone regarding what we've reviewed this evening?
Hey, Mike. I was looking at, I just happened to be looking at last year, 2020, April 20th. You did a presentation on tax levy and budget and a 5-year projection.
Yeah.
If you remember that.
Yep, I do.
But I was just going through that because you break it out, obviously, over the 5 years, and you break it down by employee benefits and wages and salaries, non-resident. You even go into the bond and debt services. I compare that against like what we're looking at, over this past year, last year's budget and the proposed budget. And, we don't have to talk about it now, but maybe that's something we can look at, you and me together next week when we catch up, so you can kind of explain it. 'Cause a lot of those things don't match up with what I'm looking at. And I know obviously COVID, but there's even other things where I would think they should match up. The years don't match up in terms of certain breakdowns. And I'm sure
did you want to stop by and we could sit down and look at it?
Yeah, just to go over that, and I can compare it against what we're looking at so that we can get, a clear number.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else at this time? No? All right. Well, I'm sure I'll have more questions after I get through this mountain of reading that's here.
Please call.
It'll cure your insomnia.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Are we ready to adjourn this meeting then?
Barbara, one other discussion item. I just want to be sure the board is on the same page as I am. For the actual budget vote, I don't recommend doing anything different. Yes, we are under COVID. Yes, we have permission to do in-person voting. I recommend we stay in the library, use the library side door, except for that person who requires the ramp would have to come in the front door. We would have to block off that front parking lot, which is about 16 cars that will be inconvenienced and have to park someplace else. I would have Julie post something that please stay away from the building during the hours of 3 and 3:30, because I don't want people to be frustrated that they can't get to the building, but it will be difficult during that time. But the more we keep things the same, time starting at 1 p.m., going till 9, I think would benefit our community. It's going to be rough under construction and under COVID and having children in the building, but I don't recommend we do anything different. It'll just be too confusing to the public.
Right.
Hey,
Okay. So
Deb.
none of the ballots like that happened last year of everybody with the absentee
The
ballot.
ballots are still available by mail,
Okay.
Yes.
but they're not going to be sending them out to every single resident.
No, it's going to be by request only. And also what we're going to be doing, I've been talking to some district clerks in the area, and they brought up a good suggestion that we will have somebody at the door taking temperatures. So if somebody at the door has a fever or a temperature, they're able to take a paper ballot to their car, fill it out, and then return it. So that way they don't get declined from being able to vote.
Wow.
Okay, that sounds very thorough. And maybe there's some way we need to make the community aware that that's what's happening after the big change up last year with everyone getting a ballot, with those being available on request only.
Yes, I'm going to get something written from the attorneys to post on
Okay.
our website
Great.
with some of these questions, because I've had a few people call with questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to get legal advice and have them write something up, and we will post it on our website so there is no confusion.
All right, great. Thanks, Julie.
But everybody's in agreement to keep everything the same?
To get to have everything go back to normal. When you said keep it
Yeah.
the same, I thought you meant do the same as last year, but no, to revert to
No, no,
normal.
no, no,
Yes. Yeah.
No, Julie, I don't think could live through another one
No,
of
no, no,
those.
no, no,
Oh
no.
my gosh. Okay, yes. Normal voting procedure in the library.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, and I do have several people from the Board of Elections that have confirmed that they will be working, and I do have some staff members that will be working after, so we will be doing shifts in a very safe manner.
Okay. Great.
Barbara, you looking for a motion?
I just want, Deb, is that the only other item that you needed to go over?
Yes, that's it.
This year, Barbara?
Sorry, what's that, Pat?
Did any board members run this year? I'm not sure on the calendar.
Oh, wait, I'm up for re-election. I mean,
Yes.
I will be running again.
Yes, there actually, I will be putting that on the website this week. There will be one seat up for re-election that will be for Barbara Dayton, and the applications, the packets will be available by the end of the week in both Spanish and English upon request.
Okay.
So that will be on the website.
Sorry about that, Barbara.
No, thanks, Pat. Thanks for reminding.
Sorry about that.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh my God. Time's not going to be flying when I'm going through this.
You're looking
all
for a
right.
motion?
On that note, then, yes, do I have a motion to adjourn? the meeting?
Motion.
Whoa. And I think there was a second there. Great. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Have a good
Thank
night,
you very
everyone.
much, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Terry, Christine,
Okay.
Mike, thank you so much for all the detail. Deb, thank
Great
you.
job.
See you guys soon.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.